Good morning, everyone. We are about halfway through Black History Month, and I've been very encouraged by seeing a lot of people posting of all walks, posting information that they are learning. And I would be just as encouraged to see people posting and learning and sharing information on a variety of topics. I mean, we see it with politics, we see it with religion, we see it with a lot of things, but those I think are still pushed to the forefront of what our society is, steeped in as far as values. And so things like history sometimes get a different rap. The one thing that I will say is when we're talking about history is always happening. So if you truly want to know things about Black history, since we are in Black history, you can also ask people who are living today. You could ask the elderly, you can ask people who have just been through it, because history is something that has happened and it's transpired. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be all the bad things that happen, but if it gives us a better understanding on how to appreciate what other people have been through. I recently finished a book on called The Brief History of Misogyny, and it definitely opened my eyes to what women talk about now because of what they have been through back then. It doesn't mean that you have to have endured it all, and it certainly doesn't mean that we dismiss it just because I am not a man who inflicted it. So when I hear the old argument, well, you weren't a slave and I didn't own any. Well, there's so many things that are just narrow-minded and short-sighted about that topic and that statement. And I'll briefly just preface it by saying, okay, let's eradicate slavery itself from that argument. Then we can jump right to the 13th Amendment. We can jump to Jim Crow laws. We can jump to federal housing acts signed by I believe it was President Roosevelt. That a lot of those things prevented generational wealth because housing was not allowed and really discouraged. Not even discouraged, just flat out. Just segregated, and that was if people were lucky enough to land in a home. We're talking about World War II veterans coming home and still not being able to have the ability to land an equal paying job as a white counterpart. And people will say, well, that was just the time and it's different now. And no, it's not really in a lot of ways. So again, if you want to know about history, ask as history is playing out in real time, because there's things that many people of color and different colors, not just black, but are brown, yellow, red, if you want to just boil it down to colors, are going through. And we see it. We see it in ugliness. We see it in racist rhetoric. We see it in hate speech. We see it in a lot of ways. So we see it in stereotyping and profiling. So those are all forms of systemic racism, whether we choose to like that or not. And this does not mean that all white people practice it. It does not mean when you hear the words entitlement that it certainly, means like, wow, you're taking advantage and, you've got something. It just means that sometimes there's just things that society has learned to accept more about a certain walk than another. But I digress. Ask people. I have always been willing to tell people my experiences, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there that will as well. And I'm willing to do it without a judgmental tone that all people have, done me wrong, or it's just this person or that person. I am trying to boil it down to a Dr. King-esque sort of philosophy of content of character over, in this case, color of skin, or how I was treated by a particular person. I think a lot of people are scared to learn new things. I think a lot of people are ignorant to learn new things, but let's just keep it in mind. History is always happening. So you can ask people who are alive today. We don't have to look to black and white grainy pictures, and it doesn't always have to be about slavery, or even less important, the Klan, because there have been more contributions by black people brought here. And let's keep in mind, slave traders did not bring slaves. They brought inventors, they brought doctors, they brought tribe leaders, they brought kings, they brought good people. and turned them into slaves. They weren't slaves when they came. And the entire, well, they, black people sold slaves, well, guess what? White royalty sold their children, often their daughters, into sexual servitude in order to gain armies and power structure. So everybody's done that on probably some plane or another. So to say that, well, they sold them, not even sure that that even makes it right. If a woman's trying to sell me, another woman, as a prostitute, doesn't mean I have to buy it. So there is that. But again, I digress. Ask people, because there's something that we can't learn in books. There's something that we just have to sit down with people and have real talks about. And if you're not getting the answers that you like from one, treat it like a restaurant or a car lot or something where you're not quite satisfied with the service or what you've obtained from it, and ask someone else. You cannot stop at one person, as your beat-all, know-all source. That you do yourself no favors, and you do your bottom line and your conclusion no favors, and it almost may perpetuate a more harmful stereotype in a lot of ways. So ask people. Ask the people that are alive now, that are going through this now, because if we want to dismiss that slavery happened a long time ago or civil rights happened a long time ago, then let's talk about what's happening now. And there's a lot that's happening now to a lot of different groups. So again, ask people. It doesn't have to be just the old people who have survived something different. We may be seeing something different in this day and age, and their youth had seen something different. They may be living now, but they still may remember it or take it different. So ask around, ask people of all ages, and give your input, give your honest input, give your honest questions without condescending. Be a good listener, be a good student of life. Just give them the same respect that you would give a professor in a class, because guess what? A professor has maybe, 8 to, let's say, 30 years in any given course of study. I have an entire lifetime, from very young memories to even current things. So when you're talking to people, if you're asking about things along the line of gender, if you're asking along the lines of ethnicity, nationality, you're talking about people who have lifetimes of experience in it. So take them at their word. Now, it may not be what we always want to hear, because we have so many confirmed biases, but we certainly have the ability to learn something new. We always do. Guess what? The phone that you probably are watching me on, you had to learn something new from it, because the phone that you had before this had different features. The phone before that had even fewer features. So at some point, your phone was almost primitive. Don't stay in a primitive state of mind. Keep upgrading. Keep downloading new apps, new information that's going to pull you into a more realistic sort of awareness. I guess I'll leave it at that. What am I at? 8 minutes? Boy, the talking goes quick and it goes long. So I always appreciate everybody who sticks in with these and gives feedback, and hopefully this gives cause to reach out, ask people. I will definitely also say that if you have family members that are of mixed ethnicities, no matter what those ethnicities are, be sure to stress the importance that knowing where people come from can be very enlightening and important in their development. Don't wait for something to happen in order to begin a teaching or a healing in different cases. So just be well-rounded, and it doesn't mean you just have to know about your heritage. You can know about other people's heritages. My neighbors are of a different walk. My other neighbors are a different walk. I don't have to know everything, but I could certainly learn a couple things, and it just makes me a more well-rounded person, more compassionate, and more willing to say, what, there's just good across the plane. I may not have every good run-in with people of different ethnicities and nationalities, but I certainly will not admonish them as a whole. Exercise your rights, exercise your freedoms, and those are of speech, first of all, expression, and just the right to thrive in a society where we have education at our fingertips. We have the ability to openly pursue certain knowledges, whereas a lot of cultures may not. So again, It doesn't have to be just Black History Month, but it can certainly be a start. The same way New Year's is a way for people to start new diets or turning over new leaves. Okay, where am I at? I'm almost at 10 minutes, so I'm going to stop rambling. Guys, have a fantastic day, and just remember, history, his story. So just because somebody tells you one thing doesn't mean that it's always true. Keep searching for knowledge and surmise your own experiences, conclusions, and keep sharing the knowledge, whether it's way historical or whether it's my friend just the other day, shared this with me, and share it and start talks and have discussions and come to solutions and conclusions that will make us all better people. Peace, love, unity, solidarity.